one of the questions, which is always a funny question to ask, is like, you know, you've had easily the best last year of your career, the Harry stuff, which is, you know, the second album you've made with him that's done so well, or second or kind of the third, because you worked on
it's the third. Yeah, I worked on the first one too. Yeah. It was just with like a little bit of a different crew, but it's been pretty similar people the whole time.
Yeah.
So yeah.
And you've gone obviously deeper and deeper with a small group and had such success in the Grammy nominations and number ones. And it's interesting to see, okay, you do all that. What does someone in your position do now that you've reached one of hopefully many career peaks? And it sounds like going back to basics and finding things that are exciting and diving in sort of a simple way is the result of that. You know, you and I were talking about it last night too. Like, there's so much of what we all do as like in the pop music realm. You know, we know like all the chords and all the words that people might use. So, you know, learning really fancy. It's not like really fancy new things. It's like, what is it that we can do to make us better at our job? It's not like we're trying to get more virtuosic at things. It's more like, it's more what can we get more fundamental. It's a weird, psychologically, it's a weird thing. Like, get closer to our own hearts or something. I don't know how to think about it.
Yeah, I think it's about removing the obstacles that now might come up for me between when I sit down and I start making music and it sounds like, this is something an AI could make, versus, now this is starting to feel actually really human and emotional. And I think that kind of distance really does come down to skill to some degree. It comes down to a lot of things, but I think that it's helped out when you have some skills under your belt that are fresh and new, not just like, I learned Blackbird when I was 14 and thus here it comes, open E string and thing like, no, I already have that. So let me learn a new thing, like completely brand new, completely novel. And that, I think, does eliminate a little bit of that. I think maybe just time that it takes sometimes to make something feel fresh. So to me.
Yeah, it's funny too, because if you learn Blackbird at 14, you've probably played it the same way for a decade or two. But if you learned something 2 nights ago, even if you learned it perfectly, all of a sudden you're in a session, it's a different tempo, and that little rhythm that you just did in a different key in a different place, all of a sudden you're exploring it and creating as you go. That's really the inspiration translating to creativity.
Yeah, I do think there's some sort of like internal shelf life that we have on ideas, you know, like we know when an idea feels a little dusty, you know. Hey, does anybody like these chords? They haven't landed yet in the last 14 years, but you just try them again, you know, versus like
that. I feel you. Yeah, go. Sorry.
No, I mean, that's it. That's you go.
I play so many things the same way. There's a great Tom Waits quote, which I probably butchered on here before at some point, but it's something along the lines that somebody asked him, why does he play all these crazy instruments? Because, you know, Tom Waits was an amazing jazz and sort of almost like bar blues pianist, great songwriter, amazing voice back in the 60s and 70s. I don't know when he exactly started, but I think of that like Nighthawks of the Diner 70s era. And then at some point he just started veering further and further away using all these crazy instruments. And somebody asked him, why do you use all these crazy instruments? And he said something along the lines of, your hands are like dogs going to the places they know, that once you start playing the same instruments, you know, playing becomes like in the hands, not in the heart, or something like that. And he's like, that's why I'll use a bassoon or a waterphone or something else, because the music is in my being, but I don't have the like muscle memory of playing the same shit over and over. And I feel that so much. That's one of the big reasons I like learning new stuff, is just like, I wouldn't have put the little syncopation like that in the way that James Brown's guitar player did. And so I had to learn the upstroke is in the one spot. And then my brain just does different stuff when I'm programming drums next time or doing something else. I just need something to just take me out of that consistency.
Yeah. And I think that kind of thing that you're saying, that's found through just fundamentals. That's what I really love about music, is that it's just actually just a bunch of fundamentals that then gets tied up into this whole idea of like how it's consumed and how it fits into the zeitgeist, and there's so much to it because it's an art form, but it's still all built on like just, you know, rhythms and harmonies that were discovered that in order for you to know that they exist, you have to do some digging. And pretty much everyone, and you know, I actually there's a guy that I've been hanging out with a lot. His name is Ramil. He's like a really good producer, and he said to me once, he was like, I do this for a living, so might as well like work on it. And I was just like, I love that. Like, he's like, I get to do this for a living, so might as well, you know, try my hardest at it. He said something to that extent, and I was like, yeah, I really love that. Like, that's really simple. I love that. I love really simple things. Like, just go learn something and be excited about it, and then go make it with people that you click with. And they're just, and I mean, I wish that I could take this own advice personally, but then kind of like let it happen, you know, let things develop. I don't actually do that. I'm quite anxious about things and what's going to happen and all that stuff. But that's definitely my goal, is just to focus on fundamentals, focus on relationships. And I think that some of the, you know, happiest I've ever been is both practicing and learning new stuff, and then also watching it unfold in the studio and hearing the results of that practice. Because all of a sudden the music feels more woven together, and it's got this extra dimension, and all of a sudden it just doesn't sound like a computer that you're just kind of having do most of the work for you. Or, you know, and this is also, speaking of instruments, there's other type, you know, there's instruments in the computer, new plugins, new, you know, just pulling out an MPC, doing some sort of like thing, getting a new pedal. There's ways of doing this, but, you know, it's like, instead of buying 7 new plugins, buy just one and figure it out, is a similar kind of approach to just learn some basics. And, you know, it's keep it simple, you know, like a Japanese chef, you know, like a sushi chef, like just keep it simple, let the stuff do the work. So yeah, it's really fun. And I lost a lot of my kind of practice routine last year, just with like living out of a studio in LA when I was traveling out there. And so routine will like a lack of routine will rob you of all your dreams. And when it comes to like those kind of goals, you will just not practice.
The lack of routine will rob you of all of your dreams is the quote of the.
Yeah, it's a little dramatic, but
but that's real, man. And I think, you know, so much of, and I've been the same way too. And I think everybody gets into this mode at some point where you're working on stuff and you lose some of that alone time, fundamental music exploration. People have often asked me about my schedule, like how do I schedule my time, how much am I writing, how much I'm producing. I'd actually be curious for you too if you have an overall thing, but like I always build in time for me to explore. And I try to do that a little bit in the morning, but I often will give myself full days to do that, where, you know, and it takes a certain amount of discipline, and sometimes I'm not perfect about it and I waste a bunch of the day, but like, I'm going to go in and I'm going to learn, you know, I didn't show you, but when we were talking last night, I was like, here's my creative to-do list. And it was like, learn the string intro on this Sam Cooke song, learn Prince, How Come You Don't Call Me Anymore. Like, just give me things like, this song is cool, I would love to learn this progression, I'd love to learn this vocal part. And I give myself time and just learn stuff, because that's where all of us started. I mean, when we were, whether we were 10 years old or 20 years old or wherever, when we were first starting out making stuff, so much of it is, I want to learn what they're doing here. And then I want to do it through my fingers, through my voice, through whatever it is. And I feel like that's such an important thing to continue to do. Otherwise, you get robbed of your dreams.
Otherwise, you get robbed of your dreams. Exactly.
Thanks for watching. Just a reminder, all of this content is free. There's no secret knowledge here. There's no Patreon. We don't read ads. We don't have sponsors. We're just trying to build a knowledge base. All that we ask in return is that you share it with somebody. Thanks so much.